back to another episode of Come Over for Dinner. I'm so excited you're joining me today. Today I have a very special guest. Her name is Brie Vestal. She is not a native to Moscow. She moved about 1.5 years ago, and she has a very interesting story. I am so excited to tell you all about her. Welcome, Brie.
Thank you for having me. It's very exciting.
So she grew up in Texas, met her husband there. He played in your brother's high school band?
Yes, something like that. It was quite the time.
Very romantic.
Yeah.
Then they took off for New York, lived in New York for about 5 years, where her husband was a videographer. He worked for the Dr. Oz show, Macy's, and Cake Boss. Yeah. And Cake Boss was a show on Food Network. And I hear that you were able to sample a lot of those cakes.
Yeah, many cakes. Yeah. He would photograph them, wasn't able to resell them, obviously. So he would bring them home and he would come home to cake I made.
Because she was also, she is the queen of cakes, which you'll hear about in just a little while. They moved to Moscow, like I said, about 1.5 years ago. And she, starting in New York, started doing cakes and not only learning how to make everything from scratch, but decorating them using a palette knife painting technique. Tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah. So I started dabbling into baking whenever we first got married. We were living in Austin at the time, and it didn't really, I had fun with it, but it wasn't something that I was really passionate about yet. And then whenever we moved to New York, we didn't really have much to do because the pandemic was happening. And so we were just stuck at home all the time. I was like, what do I do? Let me just launch myself into cake decorating. And the first cake I did, I had seen palette knife technique before, and I really wanted to do it, but I'm a very scrappy person and I didn't have palette knives, of course. And so I used a butter knife for the first cake I decorated like that. And it resembled flowers, not very well, but
But you could tell they were flowers.
Yeah, it kind of looked like flowers. And so I did a few more just with like a spoon and butter knife. Mm-hmm. And then I was like, this is fun. So I got a cheap set of palette knives and taught myself how to do it and have been just having fun with it ever since.
Well, her cakes are so unique, and I had not seen that technique before. They're just beautiful. She can be found on Instagram at Brie_Vestal, and that's spelled BRE_VESTAL. And it's fun because if anyone wants to try it, you could get inspiration. But honestly, I'm just thinking about buying one. When you read the descriptions, it's almost impossible to not just instantly message her and say, please, how much would you charge for me to buy one from you? She is a busy mom. She does have 3 children at home, they're all girls, 5, 2, and 2 months old. Yes. She just had a little baby. They're so adorable, and does cakes and on the side, like while you're a stay-at-home mom. Mm-hmm. And so you fit baking cakes. I'm sure your girls love it. They get to taste the batter, lick the bowls and the spoons and all the fun things while you're baking.
Oh, yes. They sit there and watch me decorate and wait for the frosting to be done so they can eat it.
Yes. So when I looked at her Instagram, these are the things I'm seeing. She makes birthday cakes, and one description was a 3-layer brownie cake with caramel filling. Another was strawberry with lemon cream filling. She made one for the Logos auction, orange butter cake with salted honey custard filling. She's made cookies for baby showers in just adorable shapes with tiny details. She's made cookie bouquets for Mother's Day, a strawberry lemonade cake with lemon cream macarons on top, cupcakes that are decorated with the palette knife technique that look like flowers, cake sickles. One thing I saw under the cake sickles picture, you mentioned that your first attempt was an absolute fail, and then you put a picture of your second attempt, which looks like it was straight out of a bakery in New York. So how do you're self-taught, and you obviously have to learn, and your first attempt is a fail, but your second attempt is amazing. So tell me a little bit about how you have that inspiration, and what do you tell yourself when you have a fail and then you just kind of jump right back into it and try again?
So for the cake pops, that specific time, you kind of learn how things work as you're doing them. And so with that one, it was really easy to figure out what went wrong. So the first time you use cake melts to cover a cake pop up. And with that, I found that the temperature of the cake melts wasn't right the first time. And so the second time I tried something different and it worked out as it should have. And so it was like, okay, I know that that's how it works. It's a lot of just touch and feel, like that's not how this responds to this at all. And so you have to keep going with that. But yeah, whenever something does fail, it is obviously pretty discouraging because you take time to do that and a lot of effort to get it all put together. And you're just like, oh, this doesn't look great. So my family gets to enjoy it now.
I'm sure the taste is still there.
Yeah, the taste is still there and they're enjoying it. So that helps you feel better about it. It's like, well, it doesn't look cute, but they're still having a good time. They're happy. So this is great.
It's so good to recognize that the only way we grow is through trial and error.
Oh, yeah.
We fail, got to try again, or you're not going to get better.
Right.
How did your cakes look in the beginning? Would you say that when you did the palette knife technique, I know you said you started with a spoon and a butter knife, but pretty soon when you got your palette knives, did you feel like you really had to practice a lot, or did you just jump in and you could really create a great one from the beginning?
Definitely had to practice a little bit. I mean, it resembled what it was supposed to look like. I didn't know how to make the arrangements like I do now, like make all of the flowers really close together to where it kind of looks like a full arrangement. But at the beginning, I was able to make it look like petals and flowers. And the more you do it, the more you feel like you can stack things closer together, if that makes sense.
And you probably have gotten faster at it.
Yes. Much faster.
Yes.
Yeah.
Which speed would be another benefit to practicing. What do you create besides flowers?
Animals. So for my daughter's 5th birthday this past year, she asked me to do a purple strawberry Little Bear cake because Little Bear was her favorite show at the time.
And Little Bear is there. Those are great books.
Yes. Yeah. She loves Little Bear. So we got the strawberry cake made, and then I covered it purple, and then I had to outline all of the characters' faces with like a piping bag, then fill it in, and then do the details with piping bags, smooth it all out. And so I did Little Bear and all his friends on a cake for her, and then I did flowers around it.
That is so amazing.
Yeah.
If a person were wanting to get better, and maybe it's the palette knife technique and maybe it's not, but if they were wanting to get better, what would be your best advice?
Oh, man. Keep practicing for sure. Make sure you have good palette knives. Like mine aren't expensive or anything. They're probably like $20 for a whole set. But make sure you have actual palette knives that'll do what you want it to do. And yeah, practice. Look at other people and what they've done for palette knife decorating and see what colors they use, how they put arrangements together, and study actual flowers too. That's a lot of what I do. I follow a lot of florists.
That's a great idea.
Yes. Yeah. And it's really pretty. I mean,
because
you get on
you
Instagram
want them to
and
be
you just
realistic.
see a bunch of flowers. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So yeah, look at different flower arrangements, see how they all flow together. It's really good for color palettes too, because you see these flowers look really pretty together and you just do that. So follow cake places for sure. See what they're doing. But actual flowers, I think, are more helpful to look at than other cakes.
That makes sense. Do you find techniques on YouTube, or did you in the beginning? Were you able to watch people actually do it live?
Yes. In the beginning, there is one YouTube account that has free stuff that you can look at. I can give you the link for that too. But it's super limited on what she actually shows you of what to do. So what I had to do is I watched how she did a rose, for example. And then after watching her do a rose, I was able to teach myself how to do other flowers after that. So that was fun because people do have courses for it, like cake decorators and things like that. They have some up that you can do, but they're quite expensive, ranging from like $400 to $500 just for one course. Yeah. And I don't have that to learn how to do this. So
Yeah, that's pretty steep.
yes.
Well,
it
especially
is.
if it's online and you don't actually have a person right there, maybe answering your questions or helping you with technique
Yeah.
and doing it over and over with you. That is pretty
Oh,
steep.
yeah.
I did a Wilton class way back in the day
Fun.
at my local Hobby Lobby.
That's so
I know
fun,
that's in
though.
the South. I'm not sure if it's everywhere, but
I love Hobby.
Hobby Lobby, yes. It's Christian owned.
Yeah.
It's just the cutest store. It's huge, actually. It has.
Oh, yeah.
It's similar to Michael's, maybe.
Yeah. Yeah. Hobby Lobby had all of my wedding decorations. That's where I got everything.
It's a hot spot to go
Yeah.
in the South. And they offered Wilton cake decorating classes at night,
Wow.
maybe once a week. I can't remember, for 6 weeks. And then you could do different levels. And I think I did 2 different levels because I did have little kids at the time and it was hard
Right.
to plan
Oh,
and get
yeah.
away. But, you know, I really wanted to do it. And so my husband watched the kids and I snuck away and learned some basic techniques. So that's a fun idea too. I don't know if people still do cake decorating classes, but it could be something that's offered in your community.
Oh, yeah. I've done a few here of the palette knife classes. I'm probably going to try to do some more in the fall and winter this year. So
I'm signing up.
if you're local, hopefully that'll be able to come back. But I did, I think, 3 different ones last year.
That's a great idea.
Yeah.
So tell me about frosting. So when you're doing palette knife baking, you really are an artist. It's like you're creating a palette of paints, except with frosting, but
Yep.
you're still taking your colors, your food coloring. Tell me what food coloring you use and how you do that.
Yes. So I use Americolors. You can get it directly from their website. It's actually better to do that. They have it on Amazon, but shipping is more expensive if you get it through Amazon. And they ship really fast here. So Americolor has a whole range of different colors that you can get. And I think maybe between 30 and 40 different colors you can get for food coloring, which is really fun.
Yes.
So
And then you can mix a bunch of them to create zillions of other colors.
So I have a pretty decent amount from them. And then I use American buttercream typically for my cakes because it's the most stable and it takes color the best. So it's butter, powdered sugar, a little bit of heavy cream, and that's it. And I can give you the recipe for that too. So I use that and the color and just mix until you get whatever palette you want and use that. I have also done a Swiss meringue buttercream before, which in my opinion tastes a lot better, but it does not take color well at all because it's such a high butter content, because that one's butter and eggs that you have to, egg whites that you have to whip up. And so it tastes better, but it does not take color well. So I've just stuck with American and it works.
Right.
Pretty well.
The cakes I'm seeing that you've done, they do have vivid color, lots of different colors. And so that would be really important.
Yes.
She also does, we mentioned strawberry and orange. She also does vanilla. Another one I saw, vanilla with lemon curd filling, vanilla with edible cookie dough filling.
Oh, yeah. That one's actually really good.
I was going to say,
Yeah.
there's a lot of people who like to eat cookie dough. You know, there's cookie dough ice cream. I have never heard of a cake with edible cookie dough filling. That sounds amazing.
So that it's pretty similar to a buttercream, but instead of using regular butter, you brown the butter. So it kind of has a cookie flavor to it. And it
Sounds delicious.
It's so good. Anytime I make that one, I make a little bit extra filling so we can just eat it because it's so good.
Yes.
But yes, most of my cake recipes are from a book called Icing on the Cake, and it's by Tessa Huff. Tessa, Tessa, Huff, Huff. She has a whole blog with free recipes as well. I don't know if some of these cakes are on her blog or not, but the book is absolutely well worth it to get because she has an array of cake recipes that are super good. And then she also has techniques for decorating in there. It's not what I do, but she does have a different one. Like, this is how you do an ombre cake or a paint splatter cake. Or if you want to, I don't know, do flowers. She has like how to pipe flowers and stuff too. Not paint them, but, you know, piping them. So that's a really good book to have.
That's a great resource.
Oh, yeah. The macaron recipe that I use is also in there. So
I will put that on the
Yes.
website.
Oh,
so
yes.
under your link, I'll definitely put all of these links, and also on the shop, I'll put that book under books.
Yes, that book is well worth it.
That
for
sounds
sure.
like the perfect book for starters and people who are experienced, just to learn new techniques and have some new recipes. But it does sound like even in someone beginning, they could really learn a lot from what she's written.
Yes, that was the book that I got when I first started making cakes. And they were really simple, really easy to bake, and they come out pretty good every time. Like I've never had one of her cakes completely flop for me. So if you're a starter, that is a wonderful book to have.
Well, I'm going to have to look into buying this one.
Yeah.
Christmas list.
Yes.
So Bree has also had baking shows reach out to her. They have seen her beautiful work on Instagram, Food Network, Magnolia Network, The Great American Baking Show. She has not jumped into any of those yet because she does have 3 little children. The Great American Baking Show films in Britain, so she would have to be gone for a month. So maybe in the future we'll see her on television, to be decided.
Yeah.
But that's very exciting. I mean, that really is a compliment to you. It does tell that you are doing beautiful work and have really perfected your craft, which is amazing. It's something really fun to be able to look back at your early days and realize, okay, all that hard work has paid off.
Yes.
I can teach classes now. I'm having baking shows reach out to me. I can sell cakes. That's just a really fun progression of your abilities. So jumping into food, we've talked a lot about dessert, which, you know, we really could end there, but there is such a thing called dinner and feeding your family, real food. Before dessert, what is something you might serve when you are feeding your family and guests coming into your home?
So it's funny how you're like jumping away from dessert. Actually, what I like to do the first time whenever people come over, like we haven't had them over before, but they're coming over, I do a French toast, actually.
Yum.
So
breakfast for dinner is amazing.
Oh, yes. So it's called a 3-day French toast. I have a link for it, but it's 3 days because I make my own brioche. And so
My word, that sounds
yes,
so over the top delicious.
Oh, it's amazing, but it's super easy because brioche rises overnight. So you just mix it all together one day and let it rise overnight. And then you bake it the next day, and then you cut it into about inch thick slices. So this French toast is like a hefty French toast. And you let that slice soak overnight in the custard filling that you make. And then you just bake it the next day. So it's really easy if you want someone to come over for brunch or for dinner, whichever one. Instead, you can just have it soaking until it's time for them to come over. And then you bake it for I think it's 30-ish minutes. And then you can just pull it out whenever they're there. And then you can do, what I usually do is a whole spread. So I have the French toast as the main. And then I'll make some berries, heat some berries to put on top of it, whipped cream and stuff. And then sausage and bacon on the side so people can get protein because men usually like to eat meat as well.
Right.
And so I'll do that. The other fruit and stuff to go on the side with it too, syrup and everything. And you can do orange juice, apple juice, like all the different things for brunch. So that's typically what I do the first time that someone comes over.
That sounds amazing. How do I get on your list? And, you know, kids would devour that meal.
Exactly.
No one is going to have food leftovers on their plates.
And then there's a good cinnamon roll recipe also. It's a hazelnut cinnamon roll.
I've never done that.
Amazing. It's from the Wood and Spoon blog.
Okay.
She has really good stuff. But this cinnamon roll, the bread itself is the fluffiest thing you've ever had. And you have hazelnut filling inside. And if you don't like hazelnuts, you can take those out and just do a regular cinnamon roll. Or you could chop up an apple since it's almost fall time and put apples inside of it and do a whipped brown butter topping on it, which I thought of this morning. I was like, whipped brown butter on an apple cinnamon roll sounds like the best thing
You're always dreaming up even better ways to create the amazing goods that you bake. But I love that.
But,
that sounds amazing for fall.
Yes.
And a twist on cinnamon rolls so that you're not always doing the same thing.
Oh,
it's kind of a surprise when somebody gets to try one.
Yes. Yeah. I've done brown butter and a cream cheese filling before too on the cinnamon roll, and it makes it so much better. Mm-hmm. Brown butter just makes everything better. Mm-hmm. It's really true.
I've made brown butter chocolate chip cookies, and it does just kind of gives you that little bit of something there. What is this? It's so delicious.
Yes.
So you have breakfast for dinner, and you said, really, when you're talking about making it ahead, this is kind of fun because it can be in the oven ready to pull out when the guests arrive. You're not having to fry French toast in a pan as they're standing there watching you, which could be a little nerve-wracking.
Right. Right. Yeah. Yeah. It's just straight in the oven. You don't have to worry about it. And then you can focus on, like the bacon and sausage and stuff, which is really pretty hands off. It's not anything crazy.
Do you ever pre-cook your bacon and sausage and then reheat it in the oven on a
I have not done
baking
that
sheet or
before.
something like that?
No.
I have. I mean, obviously fresh would be the best.
Oh, yeah.
But my father-in-law used to buy me bacon he went to a diner on Saturday morning. He knew the owner, this little town in Arkansas, and they had this huge griddle that they could just put, a couple of pounds of bacon on at a time. Wright's bacon, which is my favorite.
Oh, yeah.
Thick sliced Wright's, hickory smoked.
Southern bacon.
Southern bacon. You can find it at Walmart up here. Costco does not have it. He would go to this diner and he would order 2 or 3 pounds. They would cook it for him, put it in a gallon size plastic freezer bag. And he would bring it to my house and we would keep it in the freezer and just get out what we wanted. And he did that for years while we were raising little kids. It was already cooked.
Okay.
You pull out your however many slices you want. Let's say you need to pull out 10 slices and you just pop them in the oven until they're warm. It is so easy.
It sounds
and
really
I was
easy
so
and good.
spoiled because I didn't have to deal with cooking it in the grease or the cleanup or anything. It's just this perfect amount of, pre-cooked bacon in my freezer.
Just take out what you want. Yeah.
But now I actually still do that sometimes if I have time.
Well, it's a good idea. Yeah. Especially whenever you do have a lot of kids and you're like, we need to streamline this.
Or if you're having a whole group over instead of trying to cook. Which, have you ever done the Ina Garten method of baking or cooking bacon in the oven?
I have. Yeah.
I'll have to post that recipe because it's really easy, but you can lay it on a baking sheet and cook it I'm not going to say the time and temp on here because I'll mess it up because I don't have it memorized. I actually cheat and do it my own way, which I won't say on here either because everybody's oven cooks different.
Yes.
You have to know if yours is hot or not. Hers is something like a lower temperature, maybe like 350 or 400 for 15 minutes or something. I don't know. I'll definitely post the recipe.
Yeah.
The way I did it in Texarkana for my oven was I just said I'm not going to say it, and now I'm saying it. I think I cranked it up to a higher temperature, over 400, maybe 425, and would cook it 7 minutes maybe, and then flip it in a few more, but it was a lot higher temperature. I kind of had memorized what would cook it just right. So you can play with it and do it on your own thing. I would not recommend broil because that would
that would be a disaster.
Yeah, make it smoke and black very, very quickly.
Yeah.
But it's so funny how everybody has their own bacon methods. What's yours? How do you cook your bacon?
Oh, just straight in a pan. I used to do it in the oven. And then in Brooklyn, our ovens were so vastly different because they were really old. Like Brooklyn apartments don't really update things very often. And so I'd have to have an oven thermometer in all of the ovens to see exactly where it was at. But the ovens were still just so old. It did not do that bacon method very well at all. So I just got used to frying it in a pan.
Well, that is a hot tip. You should know if your oven's accurate.
Yes.
Do not ever assume your oven's accurate because what will happen is you'll start trying to make all these recipes and you think that the recipes you're reading are an absolute fail.
Oh, yes.
You'll think, oh, well, that's just not a good recipe. And it could be your oven is terrible or just off temperature-wise. So recently that happened to us. We're renting here in Moscow right now, and the oven we're using is older. And I go to make these muffins I have made dozens of times. I mean, countless times. I've made them since my kids were tiny. And I just kind of had that thought of like, I'll check them 5 minutes early just to make sure that they're doing okay. I open the oven and those things are crispy on the top. I mean, they are dark golden. They're not
nice
the lovely golden.
Yeah.
They were just over the edge. I pulled them out and they really were fine. Had a little bit of, little bit too dark on the bottom, a little too dark on the top, but they were fine. If they'd gone 5 more minutes, I probably had to throw them in the trash.
Yeah.
And so I put a thermometer in there later and it was at least 25 degrees hotter than what it was set on. So I had put it on 350 and the thermometer said 375. But when I first pulled it out, I think it was higher. I kept trying to test it and make sure. Anyway, regardless, I decided, well, from now on, I am going to keep testing it and just make sure it was a 25. But every time I've baked since then, I have to crank it down. If I want 350, I have to put it on 325.
Oh, yeah.
It's a huge difference.
Oh, it is. Yeah. I have an oven thermometer from Amazon that you can just leave on your oven rack. Like it dangles. And so it just constantly will tell you. Because, I mean, whenever you're baking, especially like macarons and stuff, the temperature has to be exact. So I just leave it in the oven all the time and just know that it's at the right temperature. And they're not expensive. I think they're less than $10 on Amazon.
I'll have to put a link for that.
Yeah.
Can you see it through your oven? Like if you turn the light on, can you see what the temperature is? Because the thing is, I don't think our oven has a light. I'll have to kind of check.
No.
But
I have had an oven with no light before too.
Yes. And I keep thinking when I'm opening the door, grabbing the thermometer, trying to read it, I'm not sure it's real accurate because temperature immediately goes down.
Yeah.
So it'd be ideal to be able to see through the oven.
And even if you don't have a light and you open your oven just for a second to see what it's at, it probably wouldn't be that big of a deal. But yeah, there you just hang off of your oven rack at the bottom part of the rack and it'll tell you what the temperature is. And it's really nice to have.
For sure. Yes, different ways you can cook bacon. Obviously, I could go on and on about this because I love bacon.
Yes.
It's my favorite.
Oh, yes.
Way more than sausage or something else.
Yes.
But it is very pricey
I
now.
too
so
think bacon is superior to sausage. But
real quick tip, another tip about bacon, besides the fact that you can cook it and freeze it, you can, in strips, you can also cut it. I've mentioned this before. You can dice it, pan fry it, and get bacon bits and freeze them. And
that's
then
a good
it's
idea.
Perfect for grabbing out the amount you need for topping salads or making breakfast burritos or anything. If you're not using them right away, you can use them right away. We've done that for breakfast burritos and just made the breakfast burritos and frozen breakfast burritos. But you can just freeze your bacon bits until you're ready for them.
Yeah.
And have that prep done ahead of time.
Oh, yeah. No, that sounds like a wonderful idea.
So anyway, for a big crowd,
Yes.
it could pre-make your meats and heat them up. Her recipe obviously can be made and be cooking and ready for when the guests walk in the door, which is very fun. Do you have any other shortcuts or time savers that you would recommend?
Not necessarily for the French toast, but for like the cakes and just baking in general. I mean, kind of what you're saying about the bacon, just take whatever you can and freeze it beforehand because I have 3 kids. So I need to be able to get as much done ahead of time. So I'll bake a cake and freeze it. I'll make buttercream and freeze it because it thaws really well. And so you can have everything, fillings also, you can freeze them. Just make sure you know how long they can be frozen for. It's usually like up to 3 months. So you can just freeze them ahead of time. And whenever it's time to put it all together, you have everything ready. It just has to thaw out. And then you can just focus on putting it together and decorating it the day you need to instead of rushing to get everything done in one go. So that is how things get done for me.
That's a fabulous tip.
A good deep freezer.
I have frozen cakes, but I have not frozen the frosting.
Yep. Yeah, you
ahead
can.
of time.
Yeah, you can. Because, I mean, it's just butter and powdered sugar, some milk. And it should be able to be stable in a deep freeze for about 6 months. And so you can just make a batch, freeze it ahead of time and have it ready. Just give it probably a good 12 hours to thaw out before you use it.
What's your technique for freezing cakes? Do you let them cool completely? Do you go ahead and put them in while they're warm?
Usually when they're warm, I let them cool in the pan for like 10 minutes because whenever you flip them out, you need them to be able to hold together. So after 10 minutes, I'll take them out and then I just wrap them only in plastic wrap. Like you don't need to wrap them in anything else. And wrap them in that and then just put them straight in the deep freeze. Because whenever you take them out, they're still really moist after you've frozen them. And so they hold together well. They still have their texture they're supposed to have.
So if you're putting them in slightly warm, it actually keeps more moisture in there.
Yeah. Yeah, you can let it cool off all the way, but it will be more moist if you just put it on when
Mallory
it's warm.
Berendrake, when she was on the podcast, mentioned that technique. And I had not actually done that before. It's
Yeah.
so great. I'm learning so many
It's
things from all these
life-changing.
amazing ladies.
Yeah.
But I always felt like, okay, it needs to cool completely before you put it
Right.
into the freezer
Yeah.
bag or you
Yeah.
wrap it in plastic wrap because you
Nope.
don't want moisture, kind of like if you're freezing cookies or something. I mean, that's what
Right.
I do with cookies. I put them on a cookie sheet and then
Mhm.
or a cooling rack and then put them in the bag because I don't want moisture to store them. But with
Right.
the cake, that makes sense.
Yeah, like you
because
want it to
you want
still
it
have
to be
moisture.
moist.
Yeah, yeah, you don't want it to be dry.
My cake techniques have changed. This is a fun tip.
Yeah.
Any particular techniques for freezing frosting? Do you do anything different other like do you lay it in a flat layer or just scoop it into a bag or how do you freeze your frosting?
I've just put it straight in Tupperware before, but I think you would be fine if you got one of those big gallon like Glad freezer bags and you just put it in there and smooth it out flat. And that way you can store it on top of each other, write dates on it and stuff like that so it can, know whenever it was made. But I think that would be a good way to store it because it wouldn't get old. It would still be covered from everything. Probably better than Tupperware, honestly.
Mhm.
Is just put it in a Glad freezer bag.
Same thing with fillings.
Yeah.
For frosting, I know you use the palette knife,
Mm-hmm.
but if you were going to do a different technique, would you pipe from a bag or what's your favorite bag to use?
I usually pipe from a bag. It's nothing fancy. It's just, I guess they're silicone. Maybe.
Not the disposable
silicone.
ones.
They are disposable.
I like the disposable.
I don't know what word I'm looking for. They are disposable though. And I just pipe straight from that. I do piping tips sometimes, but usually what I do doesn't really require a piping tip. So I just cut a hole and straight do it from that. So nothing fancy, just a disposable.
Which you could do if you had it in a plastic freezer bag. Do you ever snip a hole at the very end of a plastic freezer bag?
I have not, but I have had people do that whenever I've taught my classes. It's like if you don't want to buy piping bags, you can totally just use a Ziploc bag. And I've seen people do it in front of me and it works for what I would need it to work for.
Right. It's a pretty rustic technique.
It looks a lot more funny than a piping bag.
Right, for sure.
Yeah.
I've used that more for drizzling, not something real
Yeah.
specific. Like if I needed to drizzle cinnamon rolls or scones or something, I can
yeah.
snip. You just want to do a teensy little hole in the corner of your bag, and
Yeah.
then you can squeeze it and drizzle and get the very last drop and then throw it in the trash. You're not having to wash a frosting bag.
Oh, I know. No, I have one that isn't disposable and I never touch it because who has time to wash out a reusable frosting bag that has everything stuck to it? And no, not I.
Bakeries that do that need to give us their hot tips.
Yeah.
Because I always look at those and when I've used them before, I'm like, what in the world
I
was I
know.
thinking? How?
I
What?
know.
How is this? How do I do this quickly?
Yeah.
Someone out there knows. What is your best prep tip when you're having people over? So you have a house full of little girls and they're all demanding your attention, I'm sure.
Oh,
so
yes.
you're preparing to have this beautiful brunch or beautiful dinner. People are coming over. How do you prepare?
I usually start days ahead of time. Just like with cakes, you just you have to start further ahead of time. Get the bigger things done, like whatever dusting you might need to do, get that done a few days ahead of time so you're not running around to do that like crazy. Do general cleaning like that, like maybe 3 days ahead of time. And then as it gets closer, do more cleaning. It's really just cleaning because you have children.
Yes.
That makes things quite dirty. And then the day of, I like to put on jazz music. That's usually what I listen to anyway, just like a Bing Crosby playlist or something like that. Just something cheerful and warm and welcoming, and then just kind of make the house feel like a little bit of a hug.
They're excited when they
what
walk
I go
in.
For. Oh yeah, that's what I go for. Play some jazz music, make the morning really calm so the girls, they feel a little bit more calm and everything's coming together well. They're excited because friends are coming over and they get to see their friends and share food with them, share their toys with them, and they get really excited for that. They like whenever people get to see all of our stuff, like let's go play together. It's so fun.
That's such a great attitude and such a great thing to teach your children.
Yes, yeah.
When guests are coming over, you're going to share.
Yes, yes.
You're going to
this
show
is
them
not
your
just
toys.
yours anymore.
Right.
Yeah.
That's great. So you mentioned earlier a cooking blog that you find some cooking inspiration from. Do you have any other places that you would recommend for cooking inspiration?
I know a lot of people say this. Half Baked Harvest, though. I mean, she's great.
She does a lot
and
of
that's
great
why
work.
everyone mentions her. I love her books and her blog. And then the cookbooks that I use the most for our family are the Magnolia cookbooks. I have all 3 of them. They're wonderful. If you know me, you know that I talk about them all the time. All the time. But I mean, being from Texas, she has a lot of the Texan recipes in them, and Tex-Mex, which is a big thing for us. So I use her stuff a lot. And she also has a blog that you can get free recipes off of too. Just
Is it Magnolia Table or something like that?
something like that. Those are what the books are called. But I know if you just look at the Magnolia website, you can find a lot of recipes there. One of hers that I love is bacon tomato jam.
That sounds delicious.
It is. It is so good.
Well, you mentioned bacon.
I know. So
you
that's
had me at
something.
bacon.
We put that on top of our burgers. So it's like, it's a jam. You do have to stand there and like stir it for a while, but it's tomatoes that slowly get simmered down into like a mapley caramelized bacon. And you just put it on top of a burger and it makes it so much better.
So you're skipping ketchup.
Yes.
And this is what you're putting
Yes, and that's
in the
what
place
you
of
put
it.
on. And the recipe is really big, so you can freeze half of it for next time.
Perfect.
It's amazing. It is the best thing on
It's
her
kind
blog.
of fun to have things like that are unique and a little bit of a showstopper because that is fun to serve to guests.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
They're not expecting it.
Yeah, and if you just
They're a
want to
little
make
delighted by it.
Yes, and if you just want to make the whole batch and freeze the whole thing and just save it for when people come over and you make burgers, that's a good one.
What else do you put on the burgers besides that? Okay, what would that pair with?
I just do whatever cheese we have, like a Colby Jack or cheddar or something. Nothing super fancy, lettuce and things like that. And then I usually make my own burger buns. So
Of course you do.
yeah. So my bun recipe is from a chef named Joshua Weissman. I don't know if you've heard of him before. He's a YouTuber. So he also has a whole channel that shows you step by step how to make
That's
things.
amazing.
It is amazing. He is definitely a little crass sometimes. So definitely watch out for that. It's not my favorite thing, but he does have really good recipes and really good technique. If you don't know how to make something, he can definitely show you how to do it, and it's worthwhile. He has a good bun recipe, so that's what I use for our burgers.
Well, and what's fun about that is if you've been trying or failing, then you can watch and see, well, what am I missing?
Yep.
Or how do I do this better? Because
Yes.
mine are always flat or whatever.
Yes, and then if you don't feel like watching his videos, he has all of his recipes on his own blog for free. So you can just go to his blog and find everything that he makes, all just right there. And it's really good.
I'll have to
His
post a link
food.
to that
I
as
know.
well.
I'm just telling you all these different blogs,
Well,
but they
these
are his
hot
yeah.
tips.
Yes, he also has a Chick-fil-A nugget copycat recipe that is actually very similar to what they serve. And
That
so
sounds amazing for kids.
we just make that at home now. And then they have the Chick-fil-A sauces at Walmart. So you can just
you're
have
just
it at
having
home.
Chick-fil-A at home.
Yeah.
Which is pretty amazing if you don't have a
Yes.
Chick-fil-A in your town.
Oh,
we had
yes.
one right down the road where
So
we
did we.
lived.
Yeah.
Actually, there were 2 in town. And here they have a university
Yes.
something or other. Have you been there?
We've gotten Chick-fil-A from there, but it's not open all the time.
Okay.
And you don't know when they're not open. Like last November, we tried to go, but they were short-staffed, so they just weren't
closed.
open. Yeah.
Same. I tried checking in at that time. And then this summer, I think they were closed, maybe because the college kids were, most
Yeah.
of them were gone. So every time I check, it's closed.
Right. So I'm like, let's just make it at
And
home.
then I forget about it. So I do need to try it out.
Yes.
Maybe get a few favorites from there.
Yes.
So as you're preparing for guests, you are having to pull all this food and all these ingredients into your house. Do you go shopping with all the little girls, or how do you get groceries into your home with 3 tiny
yes.
children?
3. So our youngest is 2 months right now. So we're still in the stage of figuring out how life works again.
Yes.
And so whenever it was just 2 girls, they love to go to the grocery store. They're very chill and they like to pick things out and help me get things. But with a third, you're just learning a whole different realm of things. So I go by myself now.
Yes.
Just-
Wait till your husband gets home from work. Go in the
Yes.
evenings.
Yes. Yeah. I just do that by myself. Eventually, whenever the little one, the 2-month-old, is a little bit bigger, because she's very tiny right now. now. She doesn't even fit into a baby carrier. She's so little. So I can't wear her around the store. So whenever she's that big, I'll probably start taking them all again. But as of now, I do it myself.
Well, I had to learn that in Paris, Texas. We lived in Paris, Texas for a year, and I had 4 at the time. They were all little stair steps, just really close in age. And my husband, of course, was at work during the day, and I wanted to get the grocery shopping done. And this was before Walmart pickup or delivery. There was no such thing. You just had to go to the grocery store and do all the shopping for yourself. We're very spoiled now. Yes. So I wanted to get the groceries done and dinner cooked. I had this whole plan. So I piled all 4 kids in the vehicle and off we went to Walmart. And their age ranges at the time were probably, I don't know, 2 to 5, 6, something like that. Anyway, maybe 2 to 7, 2 to 8. I don't know. I'd have to sit here and calculate. Too much time. Regardless, multiple people needed to go to the bathroom. One was potty training. And so I remember having my list, and we got a few things, and we went on an aisle. Somebody needs to go to the bathroom. Okay, well, we'll stop. We'll leave the cart here. We'll all troop to the bathroom. We come back. Go to the next aisle. Somebody else needs to go to the bathroom.
Oh, no.
We trooped after about the 3rd trip. I thought, never again. Yeah. Never again. I give up. We've been here an hour, and I have like 5 items in my cart.
Oh, I know. Yes.
So after that, I'm sure at some point I took them all again, or maybe just took one if my husband was home. But after that, I kind of revamped the schedule where he came home from work and I took off to Walmart every now and then. Just, okay, I'm gone.
Yes. I was just telling a friend the other day that also just had her 3rd child. It's like, it feels like whenever you have 2, everything feels really put together. It's like whenever you're juggling, you feel like you can juggle 2 balls really well. You're like,
you have 2 hands.
I am so good at juggling. I can do 2 balls so easily. And then someone throws you a 3rd one. You're like, oh. No, I cannot juggle at all.
Yes.
And so it's just learning how to do that all over again.
Everyone has a different experience. I know a lot of people, they're like, when they had 1, and then 2 came along, such a big change.
Oh, yeah.
For me, it was number 3.
Yeah.
With 2, it's like, well, there's 2 adults. We have 2 hands.
Right.
With number 3 was like that for me. It's like, how do I juggle this 3rd ball?
I know. Yeah. 0 to 1 was definitely my hardest so far. 2 to 3 has been pretty easy, but it is just like she's a very sweet, easygoing baby.
That's great.
But it's just trying to figure out the schedule of everyone doing everything, which is making it difficult. But it's a good difficulty to have.
Yes.
Like, what a blessing a 3rd little kid is.
For sure. Because you really are in different stages. There's the baby stage, there's a toddler stage, and you have a 5-year-old who's doing schoolwork and learning things, and of course has different interests than the 2-year-old and the baby.
Oh, yes.
So it is. I remember the same thing, just figuring out when we lived in Paris, I homeschooled all of them. And, well, one was potty training. And then the rest, he was there doing his, he was tagging along, learning things as well. I'm sure I was teaching him his ABCs and numbers. But I was homeschooling all the rest of them. And just figuring out that schedule was, rocket science.
We homeschool as well. So it's just like,
people that say being a mom, a stay-at-home mom, is just not, a job.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I know people who have said that they go to work to have a break, to get away from the kids, and which is sad.
Yeah, that is sad.
I have heard that before.
Like, I would miss them.
Oh, so sad. I'm like, that's not
it's like
really...
I miss them whenever they take a nap. Like, I would miss them if I was at
work all day. But what they're saying has an element of truth, where if you have 3-4 tiny kids at home and you go to work to the adult world, you're not having to deal with any of the all the things. You're in an adult environment, sipping your coffee, able to go to the restroom when you need to go to the restroom, and nobody's crawling and knocking on the door.
Yeah.
Mom.
But there's a part of that that's so sweet, though.
It is.
It's just like,
it is.
I'm here for you. Like, even in the most inconvenient of times.
Yes.
Like,
so moms definitely have one of the hardest jobs on earth. And if they're doing it well, it's definitely very challenging, requires a lot of brain power, a lot of intellect, a lot of planning, a lot of work. I remember with my first one, he was just crawling. And I don't know why this stands out in my memory. You know, you don't pick your memories. You never know what you're going to remember, because I don't remember most of the moments from when he was beginning to crawl. But this one stands out. I think I probably still had just one. Maybe I was pregnant with number 2. And he was crawling around and playing. And I, made sure he was all set up with his toys and ran to the bathroom. And all of a sudden, I hear this kind of banging on the door.
Oh.
I'm just like, he was looking for me like, hey, let me in.
Where have you gone?
Like, how did he follow me? He just started learning how to crawl.
He learned to crawl just so he could find you wherever you
went. Maybe he was an experienced crawler. Maybe he's a little bit older. Maybe it was a little bit past that stage. But he was just hot on my trail.
Oh yeah,
and I didn't even know he was hot on my trail. So yeah, those couple of minutes were not peaceful.
No.
As he wondered if I had abandoned him forever.
Oh, no.
Okay, so back to hosting company coming into your home. You talked a bit about showing warm hospitality by having a tone set with some fun music. Is there anything else you would recommend?
My husband, so he does video. He is not big on overhead lighting. So he's like, this feels really harsh. So like, let's do not overhead lighting. So we have sconces on the wall. We have candle sconces, but we don't light candles too often. But we have just light bulbs that are on the wall. So that way you have more of a warm light environment. We don't use cool lights. We use the opposite of cool lights.
Very warm. What are those called? That's not daylight. Daylight would be more of the
daylight
cool.
is the ones that are cool. So I'm not it's not.
But I know you can look at the box and see the spectrum.
You can see.
They're more of a golden yellow light.
We use more of the yellow toned light. So that way it feels a little bit more warm. Like not like a fireplace, obviously, but it just has more of that tone instead of the harsh, cool light. So we use that wherever we can, not using overhead lights. And then I like fall quite a bit. So I stock up on like fall scented things. And so our house just always smells like a warm fall environment. Warm lights, warm fall, warm everything. And so that is usually what I do, just little things, nothing crazy, because, we have a small place. We don't have a lot of room to fit a lot of people in. So just doing small things here and there that make it feel bigger, warmer, and welcoming is what we focus on.
Well, being able to walk into a home that has been thought through, you're walking into somewhere that smells nice, it's been clean, the music's
as much
playing,
as you can.
Right, as much as you can with 3 children coming behind you and undoing all the things.
Yeah.
Which everyone coming into your home would, of course, recognize and understand that, and are probably bringing their own kids to add to the chaos. That's not the end of the world. But yes, that is a great idea, or great tips to make your home feel welcoming. So what is your must-have kitchen item, and where can we find it?
Well, we did talk about the oven thermometer and food colors. I would say those are pretty big. For cake decorating, a good icing scraper is something that you should have if you want to do layered cakes. It's just a stainless steel scraper. I'll give you the link for it.
Okay.
It helps you get a really smooth frosting. So that way you're not like trying to use a knife or something to get the cake all held together and looking smooth. Just a good cake scraper. They're like $6. Not expensive, but that one is a must-have if you want to decorate cakes well. For cooking in general, I don't really think I have another one. I really just focus on baking a lot more than cooking. I just have, general knives and
all the prep things,
pans and stuff. I don't have anything fancy, but I get it done.
Right. Well, on the baking with the cakes, you mentioned the palette knife or the frosting colors or the frosting knife. What do you use as far as setting the cake on something? Do you use cake rounds? Do you just use a cake plate? Do you have a spinner? How do you set up your cake to start decorating it?
Yes. So I do have cake boards, which are the little rounds that you put them on. So I usually, whatever size I have, I'll put it on one of those. And then I do have a turntable, but it is it is not a good turntable. I need to get a different one. It's very plastic And whenever you turn it, it has a bump in it. So every time I turn it, it kind of bumps.
Oh, no.
So I have to work around that whenever I'm frosting cakes. But a good turntable would be nice if you want to decorate cakes well, but it's not necessary because I don't have one that works well.
And you decorate cakes all the time.
Yeah.
If you were going to replace yours, what brand would you look for?
I would probably get a stainless steel one, something that's a little bit heavier on the bottom and just turns a lot smoother. It probably wouldn't be a super expensive one. You don't need things that are expensive to do stuff like this. I am a very scrappy person and I can get by with minimal stuff. But probably a stainless steel heavy bottomed turntable is something you should look for. But mine is just plastic and it turns. So
right.
I'm able to use
now,
it. Yeah.
So maybe it'll go on your Christmas wish list.
Yeah.
So do places like Wilton or Americolor, do they sell these kind of supplies?
Americolor doesn't. Wilton would. A turntable, I got mine originally off of Amazon, but I would not be surprised if like Michael's has it. I bet Hobby Lobby would have it too, but that's not here.
Right.
Yeah, a lot of these supplies you can find at craft stores or Amazon. Looking at other baking blogs, seeing what supplies they use is really helpful. Like an offset spatula is something that's really helpful too. Yeah.
That's actually a great idea. When I was in my first years of marriage and having babies, Ina Garten had a TV show, and I know she still does lots of things. From her, I learned a lot of different techniques, but also, like you're mentioning, the products that she was using were actually very, very reliable and good. She used, she cooked all the time. When she showed something or she was using it, I'm like, now what is she using? What is that brand? And there were a few things that I ended up buying and I still have today. That actually is a really good tip, that if someone has been doing it for a long time or they really highly recommend something, it might be something that would be worth looking into. And you can always read reviews online as well. Although those aren't always reliable.
Right.
You have to kind of pick and choose because everything's usually going to have a 1-star all the way up to a 5-star. And the 1-stars could just be something way off.
Right.
They've done something wrong or they're just complainers or they're not even reviewing the right product.
Right.
I mean, you just never know. You have to take it with a grain of salt.
Yes. And I think something important too is that you don't ever really need anything fancy. Like you don't have to get the most expensive thing in order to get a good product out of it. Because I feel like a lot of people think that, like whenever I started cake decorating, I was like, I need all of the best stuff in order to make anything good at all. But you really don't.
Right.
You can get cheaper things and still come out with a good product. And if you find that you're doing it a lot more than you thought you would, you can always upgrade later. But just to get started, you don't need anything fancy at all.
Which would be something that might hold people back.
Oh,
so that's a great thing to mention. Don't be held back because you think you have to have hundreds of dollars to begin.
Oh, yeah. Oh, absolutely not. No, I remember whenever my husband and I had just first started dating, I was very I really, really wanted to be a photographer, but I just couldn't do it because I didn't have a good camera. And he was like, just start with what you have. Like I had a really bad iPhone at the time. I don't remember what camera it was, but it wasn't a good camera. And he was like, just start with that and see what you can do with that. And so I was like, okay, yeah, just start with what you have. And that's what I did with the cakes, with the butter knife and spoon. Just start with what you have, even if it's just a butter knife. Like just start there, see if you like it. And if you like it, you can do a little bit more after that. But yeah, just what you got is what you can use.
Yep, for sure. Okay, so from all of your years of baking, do you have a story for us? Any disasters, any fails?
Oh, there's been so many disasters. There was a pie that I was trying to make in our Brooklyn apartment one time. And it was whenever I had first caught sight of like geometric pies. So people were making the pie crust into all different weavings into making geometric patterns. I was like, I really want to try making one of those. So I tried to make it, and I was thinking for some reason it'll be easier for me to make this on some parchment paper off of the pie so the filling doesn't get on the crust while I'm weaving everything and then transferring it over. So I am weaving it all together. I get it set on the parchment paper, and for some reason I thought it would just slide easily onto the pie. And I didn't think to chill it, which is what I should have done. I should have froze this top before I put it on the pie. But I just thought it would slide really easily on. So I spent hours on this thing. I spent hours weaving it all together, like maybe 2.5 to 3 hours. It took a long time. and I go to put it on the pie.
Oh, no.
And it fell just completely on the floor. It didn't even make it on the pie. It just fell on the floor. And I
There
just
was
remember
no sliding. It just dropped.
it just dropped. And I remember just standing in the kitchen, kind of like, Pooh Bear just staring at his tummy. Just having to think for a second about what just happened and just like, all right,
How do I process this?
this just has to be okay now. I was like, this is where we are. This is where we are. And then we were in Brooklyn, so of course a mouse had to crawl across the floor too.
At the same time, he was ready. He was ready for the pie drop.
It's like, all right, thank you, Lord, for this moment of humbling me. This is where we are.
Well, like we mentioned earlier, a lot of times the way you learn and you get really good at something is because you had a fail to start with.
Yeah, like hindsight, I should have froze that before I tried to move it.
Right, which you didn't know.
Nope.
And so the second time you go to do it, you do it, and then it's probably slides beautifully.
Oh, yeah.
And it's just the most
I don't think I
gorgeous.
did it again after that, though.
It's like, I'm
Geometric
done
patterns are
with
not for me.
geometric patterns.
Yeah.
Well, especially the time even just to create it. That sounds
Yes.
very time intensive.
Yes. Yeah.
That's a great story.
Yeah.
Well, now we've also learned another tip. So if you're creating a pie topping on parchment paper, freeze it first before moving it.
Absolutely. Yeah.
We've learned from your mistake.
Yes.
Great. Well, thank you so much for joining me today. It has been so much fun and I've learned so much. This is going to be a fabulous episode for all of my listeners. So thank you for taking time out of your day.
Of course. Thank you for having me.
Until next time, bye for now.